Welcome in, college football fans. It's that time again. Hell yeah, you're in the right place. It's the First and Long College Football Show, and we're here to break down another one of our spring previews for a team that's been on everybody's mind over the last couple of years for good and the bad reasons. Mason, are you ready to talk some Colorado football? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. Definitely ready to talk Colorado football. It seems like a topic that never ceases to escape us. Colorado has, for better or for worse, consumed college football fans for the past two seasons, and Deion Sanders is obviously a big part of that. Um, I, I'm definitely excited to talk about them. I don't know how much we can really take from this program, given that you've got a mesh of talent that came from the transfer portal, that came from elsewhere. This is not the same team that it was last year. No college football team is, but that's not any more true about any other program other than Colorado.
This breakdown took us a long time because exactly that, Mason. There's no really consistency from last year other than just a few players that we're going to get into here in just a minute. If this is your first time tuning in to the First and Long College Football Show, shout out to you. Leave us a comment in the comment section. What do you think Colorado's going this year? Is it another 4-8 year? Are they going to regress? Are they progressing? Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. And we've got your Power Four college football coverage wall to wall. We're doing this in the off season now, but in the regular season, we're going to have it bumping. We'll have a live show every week that you can come and comment on and probably join the show at certain times. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're really looking forward to the 24 season. And to really get us going, we're going through our 35 most discussed teams are we're going to come out with a ranking right before the season, after we see some stuff in fall camp and everything. But we're breaking down all the teams that were going to affect the college football playoff this season, and we're so glad that you're going to be riding along with us. Hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you. Let's kind of jump into this thing, Mason. This all started with the Deion Sanders era, right? Colorado goes 1-11 next year. Deion Sanders comes in. They start out hot. And look, man, it was I think a culture shock for a lot of people to see a coach come in and say, hey, pretty much all of you that are in this room, we don't need you, and we'd like you to leave. And it was a shock. It was a shock to the senses for a lot of college football fans, and definitely a culture shock for that program. You can see the quote there on your screen. I'm bringing my luggage with me, and it's Louis, and he meant it, Mason. And today there's a million things we could talk about that are just a bunch of drama, right? I mean, there's a ton of drama around this program. Today, we're talking about the football side of things, okay? And we'll leave all that other stuff up to ESPN and all that if they want to talk about all the girl stuff about this. We're going to talk about the boy stuff. Let's go. Let's talk about some football. Shedeur Sanders. This is a guy that I talked about last year early in the season, that whenever he's on his game and whenever he has some time, which he didn't have last year, he was sacked 52 times. I think he's really good. I think he's really, really good, actually. Imagine if Shedeur Sanders, Mason, was on a Alabama team or a Georgia or an Ohio State with all those weapons. Could you imagine what this guy could do on one of those ball clubs where he's actually got an offensive line? And I mean, look, I know he wanted to play for his dad and everything, but my goodness gracious, it seems like he could have benefited from going to a program that was more established, because this guy's a really, really talented passer, and I think he's got a bright future in the NFL as long as he can keep things between the lines, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't for not trying to go the D1 route. I remember Shedeur being a recruit at Georgia, and them trying to evaluate him as best as possible. I think ultimately they ended up passing on him. I'm sure that there were some other teams that ended up passing on him. I don't, and I wonder at what point was that a reason that Deion Sanders decided to coach at the collegiate level. At what point did he say, well, if you can't go to Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, then I'm just going to do this thing. I'm going to coach him and make sure he gets to where he needs to go. Regardless, it has worked out for him. This has been quite I would say, an impressive experience for Shedeur. I think that the college football experience has been just. How can you say that this hasn't been a success for Shedeur? I don't see how it has been. The pro scouts know it. I think true college football fans know it. And hey, there are some people who think that this guy's the best quarterback in the country, and there are certainly some aspects of his game that you can point to build a case around that. It's tough to say because, like you said, last year sacked 52 times. That it never leads to success in the quarterback position. He still found a way to be almost 70% completion and only 3 interceptions. It's pretty remarkable, honestly, and what he was able to do, over 3,000 yards, pushing 30 touchdowns. I think it was a pretty stellar performance. I do think, and we'll get into the offensive line here in a minute, I think he's going to have better offensive line play. Is better 40 sacks or is better 20 sacks? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of where we're at here. Going into the Big 12, we'll have to look at their schedule. You could say that their schedule got a little bit easier, but depending on how it plays out, depending on how these teams do in the Big 12, which I think is going to be a really competitive league, you could also say that it gets harder. Ultimately, though, I do think that Shedeur is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in college football. If you put him alone in a quarterback competition with, the 20 best, I think he would be in the cream of the crop, essentially, in that room. Top 3, I think, would be probably where I would have him if I were an NFL scout. And it's really just going to depend on the weapons around him, which we'll get into here in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I saw something the other day on ESPN's, their podcast or whatever, which is kind of lame. I mean, if you're not watching First and Long, what are you really doing? But, I got to scout the competition. And Pete Thamel was talking about, those 52 sacks, saying that at some point the quarterback's got to get rid of the football. And basically saying that, some of those sacks were on Shedeur. And I'm not saying that they weren't, but whenever Sean Lewis was removed from offensive coordinator, it kind of opened my eyes. Last year, if you don't know, Sean Lewis was the offensive coordinator for those first 5 or 6 games of the year, and I believe at that point Colorado was 4-2. But Sean Lewis was actually trying to play some football. Sean Lewis was trying to figure out a way to win football games, not pad stats and make sure that Shedeur ends up in the first round. That wasn't his priority. And so, with that being said, I think there was almost a stubbornness with this offense after they moved on. Now has moved on to be an offensive coordinator for a better team, honestly. But there was a stubbornness and a willingness to say, no, we are going to drop back. We are going to throw. Don't care if we get sacked. We'll drop back and throw again. And, it didn't work out great for this team. This team didn't win another game the rest of the season. So I think that there was those 52 sacks. I disagree with Pete Thamel on the fact that that's not Shedeur. I don't think. There was a stubbornness that was going on with that play calling, and it was not helping that situation at all. Let's talk about the returners on this team. And this isn't every single returner, but on the offense here, Travis Hunter. I thought at times played really good receiver when he was healthy last year. We all know what he went through with the injury bug after that big hit that he took. But all in all, I like Jimmy Horn. I like Omarion Miller okay. We're going to kind of dive deeper into these wide receivers as we kind of go into this thing. But these guys kind of lack a little bit of size for me, Mason. Now, just understand they are playing in the Big 12. I think they're going to be fine. I think these are going to be talented receivers. They're going to have a lot of receiving yards. They got a quarterback that can sling the ball to them. But it just seems to me watching spring games, it seems like it's been really hard to put weight on some of these guys in that Colorado football program. But maybe it's just the West Coast. I'm not sure. A lot of slider built guys. What do you think about these guys coming back for Colorado? I know they wish they had the running back from last year. That that hurt pretty bad in the transfer portal. Other guys headed out. But I think you've got at least 3 guys here that are serviceable for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is the best receiving core in the Big 12. And I don't think it's very close, if I'm honest. This is they've got 5 bona fide dudes, who can play. Slide a build, yes, but can absolutely go up and get the ball. Travis Hunter, you're not going to see him. I don't think you're going to see him as much on offense as you will on defense. It seemed like he was defensive centric last year. As a two-way player, you've got to have a side that you side with. And for me, I think Travis Hunter knows that it's on the defensive side of the football. We may see a position switch for him from cornerback to nickelback. I wonder how that affects his play on the offensive side of the football, where it was pretty obvious that last year, before he got hurt, there were some times where he was winded and he was getting gassed and getting gashed because he was getting gassed. So, to me, when I look at Travis Hunter, I want to know, and I think this year will define it, but is he going to play defense at the next level or is he going to play offense? I'm not sure which is the better fit for him. I know he's always been leaning more towards defense, but he is a smaller build. So I'm anxious to see what he does. A playmaker nonetheless on both sides of the football. I really wish we had a full season of him last year, because what he was doing when he was going both ways was just absolutely so impressive. He was taking over the game in certain games, and I'm excited to see more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, though you just saw those returning guys. Here's some of the offensive transfer additions that Colorado's brought in. I really like LeJontay Wester. I think this is a really, really good pickup. Let's see, 5'11", 167 pounds, came over from Florida Atlantic, 108 receptions, 1,168 yards, and 8 touchdowns. I mean, he played on a horrible Florida Atlantic team. I mean, horrid. So you can imagine the amount of catches that you've got to have per game, right? Whenever you're catching 108 balls in one season. Just absolutely great work there. Dallin Hayden coming over from Ohio State, playing running back. We'll kind of transition. Let's talk about Terrell Timmons real quick. Terrell Timmons comes over from NC State, 6'2", 195 pounds. There's a little bit more size there. I like that. He had 11 receptions, 195 yards last year, so not a ton of grabs, but enough experience to get his beak wet in some real competitive college football, and I think that he's somebody that's going to be able to contribute this season. As I was saying, we'll transition over to the running back, because we actually had some news in the running back room
real
today.
quick. I don't know if you're going to get back to this or not, but I don't want to gloss over Will Shepherd, because I think that Will Shepherd adds that size element at 6'3", 200 pounds, coming over from Vanderbilt. He's one of the 5 that I mentioned, of bona fide receivers, along with Wester and Horn and Hunter and Miller that you mentioned on the last slide, but did not want to gloss over him. He was Vanderbilt's best receiver last year. Seeing him kind of come over to Colorado, I think it's going to be a big bump. And also, I really like the size that Terrell Timmons brings at 6'2". Everyone else, Wester, Miller, Horn, and Hunter. I mean, they're all slider built, but these 2, I think, will add a different element.
Yeah, I noticed that. Whenever Colorado's went into the transfer portal, it seems like they've tried to size up, and I think that is a very good thing. You don't want to be a Clemson where you've got one type of receiver in the room. You definitely need all types. So the slight built guys, they had that last year. They were speedsters, absolute speedsters, and I think they're going to have more of a repertoire
Mhm.
of guys this season, and I think that's great. Over to running back, as I said, we've had some more news on that today, the day that we're recording here. So we'll kind of get to some transfer portal news in that running back room here in just a second. But Dallin Hayden comes over from Ohio State, comes over from a crowded room at Ohio State, right? He had over 500 yards in 2022.
Mhm.
I did not know that until we started diving into this. Only played in 3 games last year, so those numbers were obviously down. But this is a guy that I think he's going to be really successful if the offensive line can just give him some type of hole to run through, which is a big if. We'll get to the offensive line here in just a moment. But I just saw that Isaiah Augusta has transferred over from Arkansas to Colorado. I actually saw that on the way home from ball practice today. Was wondering where he was going to go. As I watched that Arkansas spring game, he was a guy that really popped. And, I actually even said during the spring game, I said, wow, it seems like this guy's playing harder than everybody else. Well, I think he knew he was headed out the door. He was putting something
Mhm.
on film, which is something that's kind of been a trend this spring. You can kind of see some guys that are putting in that extra effort and really trying to put some good film out there, and he did that, and he's going to be playing running back. And look, I think he's a good, strong running back. I think this was a great pickup in the transfer portal here at the last second for the Colorado Buffs. But Michael Welch, a freshman, a guy that they're looking is eventually going to be able to do something. Um, but man, the running back room was so small.
Mhm.
Not small as in size, but just in numbers. Not many guys in that room. So adding Augusta was a big deal because Mason, there is just not a lot of depth here. Not any depth with any playing experience at all, really.
Yeah, I think that going into this offseason and having Dylan Edwards transfer out, you've got a hole to fill there as
Yeah.
a playmaker. That he was. The playmaker that he was left a hole, and ultimately, yeah, like you said, their running back room was depleted, and they go in and add. Um, they go in and bring in freshman Michael Welch. Um, they have the redshirt junior Offerdahl, who offers um, a little bit of depth, but he's not anybody that you really want out there. He's not a 3 down back or anything like that.
Yeah.
But also Rashad Amos. I think that he's a guy who shined in the spring game, and Braden Hood is another guy, one of the Hood brothers, who it could get some playing time at some point. So I think that going into this offseason, it was a position of weakness. And now, as we come out of the spring portal window, it's a position of strength. It's highlighted by Dallas, Dalen Hayden. And he, to me, I think is a really good fit for this offense. One thing that I thought we should have seen more of than we did, and we saw it early in the season, but as the season went on, we didn't see Edwards being involved in the offense as much in the passing game. That's one aspect that I think that Hayden can come in and make a big impact if they decide to use him properly. He's a guy who's slider built, 5'10", 187. He's got some wiggle, and I'd like to see him catching more passes out of the backfield in order for that to open up the running game, as well.
Yep. Yep. They look, and all of that is going to depend on this line. It's all that the running game is going to completely depend on this line. Everything is going to depend on this line. And so that's kind of where we'll go to next. Mason, we got an offensive line overhaul going on at Colorado this spring, and um, look, like a lot of coaches that are on this roster, there's a lot of unknowns. Okay, and the new the new offensive line coach, Phil Loadholt, is an unknown. He has spent the last 2 seasons as an analyst at Oklahoma. As you can see, they're retired from the NFL in 2016. Played for the Vikings. Um, Look, he obviously knows the game. He was an offensive lineman at the highest levels in the world. Okay. He obviously knows how to play the position, but do you know how to coach the position? Right. And do you know how to get the most out of guys that are going to go through struggles this year. I mean, it's going to happen. We're talking about there's going to be a true freshman left tackle playing on this line, and I feel like that kind of is the story for this whole line. Mason, I couldn't find really a whole lot of experience. Tyler Johnson comes over from Houston, and it seemed like they were really excited about that, but I don't even see where he's got any real experience, hardly. So, who in this room are they going to be able to rely on, if anybody? I mean, this is a really important position to have a coach that's ready to transition these guys into a role on a Division I college football team, and he's never coached a Division I college football team. So I've got a lot of questions here, man, and I don't think I'm going to have a ton of answers until the fall rolls around.
Right.
What do you think?
I think that if there's a positive in this offensive line overhaul, it's the fact that they did it, first of all, because look, this offensive line was terrible last year.
It's not like it was good last year. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. And so what they did is they went out and said, look, let's go get some athletic guys that are big. They sized up. You know, it is an overhaul, but they sized up. Everybody's 320, 340. I saw a guy at 368 pounds. Like, they've got some actual girth and some size on this offensive line. I think it's going to pay dividends. But early on, you know, you've got a true freshman at left tackle. That's a question. The center's only is a true sophomore. You know, he doesn't have a ton of experience. The grad transfer coming in from Houston, Tyler Johnson, a grad transfer who played for what in total, I want to say it was less than 20 games. So what does that really mean? Tyler Brown's the redshirt senior, and you know, I think that Johnson and Brown are both in a competition there at left guard. But ultimately, you know, Khalil Benson's going to probably start at right tackle and Justin Mayers at right guard. So you've got 5 brand new offensive linemen, and you needed that. You needed 5 brand new offensive linemen because none of them were really Division I starters last season. So yeah. I think I don't want to put too much fault in this whole in the line and in the coaching overhaul. But if I were to put any sort of fault in what they did, it's in the coach. You know, I would have liked to have seen them go out and get a better coach, a more qualified coach. But I've got to take him at face value and say, hey, you know, Deion Sanders knows what he's doing. So let's just see what this guy can do. You know, I don't mean to throw stones at Coach Loadholt or anything like that. I don't know. Yeah. We don't know what he's going to be.
No, we just don't.
He might be the best offensive line recruiter, and maybe that's enough. You know, they were able to bring Seton in. You know, so maybe that's got something to do with why he's in this position. But ultimately, there is a huge question mark in the biggest position group in college football. It's the offensive line. When you're talking about moving the offense and you know, moving the football in general, you know, it comes on the offensive line, whether you're playing good or playing bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And if he is brought in to be a recruiter, that's the whole reason that they're in this mess, is because they haven't recruited it or built any players. And I understand that the transfer portal is there to be used. I don't think it's there to be used like this. But you know what? We're going to see. We'll see. And the first thought that pops into my mind is, my God, whenever they play Nebraska, second or third week of the year, that's a pretty good defensive line there at Nebraska. It's going to be tough early on these guys that are unexperienced. We'll get to the schedule here in a few minutes, but definitely an area of concern for me for this team. And yeah, there might not be a more important position group in football. Let's talk about some of those offensive line additions. We kind of just talked about them, and we'll just kind of graze through these here because you already mentioned some of them. But Tyler Johnson, Phillip Houston, Khalil Benson, Justin Mayers, Yakiri Walker, Peyton Kirkland. I 100% anticipate that all of these guys will see playing time, and the best are going to win the job, and that's great. There's competition going on there. I just don't know a ton about those guys. So we'll kind of moving on. Before we move on to defense completely, though, did you find anybody at tight end that has any experience? Because I didn't.
I mean, it just all I heard was that Sam Hart is going to be the starter, redshirt junior, 4-year player. So I do think that he's got a little bit of experience. I don't know much about him. I don't know that this is a position that they
use a lot.
Use a lot, or I don't think this is going to be an exclusive position for this offense or anything like that.
Yeah, kind of rare in college football these days, but nonetheless, I did not really see any playmakers in that room, man. So let's jump over to the defense, and as everybody knows, you got Shiloh Sanders out there at safety, Travis Hunter playing defense, and you returned Cameron Silman Craig in that secondary, and I think that actually is a really good retention point there to be able to retain somebody that. I think he actually had over 50-something tackles total for the year, but 32 solo there, as you can see on your screen. So got a few guys returning, but let's talk about this D-line first, and we'll work our way back to the secondary. I am thoroughly impressed with the D linemen that they brought in through the transfer portal. I have to say that I am. If there was one group that was addressed thoroughly, I think it was defensive line. On the offense, I think your strength is wide receiver. On defense, I believe the strength of this team is going to be defensive line. And that is a nice change of pace from last year. Last year, this defensive line sucked. Could not stop a nosebleed, right? This year, I think that they're going to be serviceable on the defensive line. As you can see there at the top of your list, Okunlola, 6'4", 245 pounds, 9 tackles, 5 sacks last year. So I expect him to bring some production, and it seems like a guy that can actually get after the quarterback a little bit. Quincy Wiggins there, very little playing time for him, but he's 265 pounds. He's got the size coming over from LSU. Was behind a couple of decent defensive linemen there at LSU. So I could definitely why he needed to transfer, and I think he's going to actually be a decent piece. That was a pretty highly touted recruit there. BJ Green coming in from Arizona State, 6'1", 270. He had 21 solo tackles and 6 sacks last season. You got Rayan Buell, 277 pounds, 12 solos, 4.5 sacks. So you're starting to see some guys come into this program with a little more size, right? I think that's kind of the sweet spot is around 275 to 300. You got to have a couple of guys that can anchor this defense. And one of the guys that I saw, let's see if I can find him. There was one guy they had brought in, Mason, that was over 300 pounds, and I can't remember who it was now. But big old boy. Okay. So they beef up these defensive line players. I think that's going to be a huge help to the linebacker core this year.
That was Taufik Thomas.
Where did he come from?
6'3.5", 345 pounds from Louisville.
You got to have those guys. I mean, he's not an every down guy, but you've got to have those guys for certain types of situations in big time football this year. So overall, I mean, what do you think about this defensive line group? I like it. I think that they addressed a lot of needs. I'm not saying it's the best defensive line in the country or anything, but I think it's certainly an upgrade from the poor performance we saw on the field last year.
Well, it may not be the best defensive line in the country, but it's the best defensive line transfer group in the country, and it's extremely deep. And I think that's what
reminds me of Duke last year. Remember, right. Duke had like 9 dudes that were like fair seniors, just like that.
Look at the difference in Duke's defense from 22 to 23. Right,
big.
This defensive line is big. They're physical and they're deep. They can play. They have 2, groups. They've got the starters and the backups. They can both play with very little drop off, and I think that's what you're looking for specifically on the defensive line. Those guys get gas, but you need them to have a high motor and to keep going. The one guy that wasn't mentioned that I think is probably the best in this whole bunch is he's a redshirt junior transfer, 6'5", 315 pounds, Anquin Barnes. He's the project, right? He's the one that you're going to come in here. He's very athletic, kind of long, and especially to be playing defensive tackle. He's kind of the project, the dark horse to come in. Also, Chidozie and Wonkwo. I did see he was listed there just a minute ago, but he's 5'11", a little bit shorter, 295, but an elite wrestler and somebody who can play nose tackle at that size, which is impressive in its own right. But he's probably going to be the starter at nose tackle based on everything that we're hearing. Shane Cokes looks great at defensive tackle as well. And BJ Green is another one, 6 sacks last year. So another transfer. He's going to be coming off the end at defensive end. They've got some dudes. So to me, for the 3 down linemen that they play, and you can throw Ukun. Sorry, I can't pronounce these names. Ukun Lola at the buck spot on that defensive line as well. 5 sacks for him last year. I know you mentioned that, but for me, the top 4, and that's kind of what it is with Colorado that I've noticed is trying to figure out who are the starters, right? Because there are so many transfers coming in. There's a lot of competition going on, but as it stands today, in my opinion, it looks like it'll be Ukunlola, Barnes, if he performs well in fall. If not Barnes, I think it's going to go to Cokes, and Wonkwo and BJ Green. I think those are your 4 starters right there on the defensive line.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I have to say I'm impressed with the amount of talent that's been able to. Because defensive line, man, that's typically a position that, I mean, there's only so many hanging on the tree, right? I mean, that you can go pick, and man, to be able to bring this many in, I think is pretty impressive. I think that's pretty impressive. Let's talk about the linebacker portal additions. Keaton Wade coming over from Kentucky. This is a guy that, I think is a pretty good fit for this team and is going to have to play. He's going to have to play well. And they had him listed with the defensive line group, all these edge players. I put him in with the linebackers. These seem like outside linebackers to me.
Yeah.
Keaton Wade, 6'5", 250 pounds, 17 solo tackles and a sack last year. I expect to see him get a lot of action. That is a big fella there at outside linebacker, and I think that's going to be a huge help. Jalen Wester, as you'll see listed on your screen there, I like that guy a lot too. 33 solo tackles, a sack, forced fumble. Hill Green, 48 solo tackles last year. Johnny Chaney, which you'll see on your next slide there, 58 total tackles. So again, I feel like there was. I feel like this was a good group to gather in the portal to answer a ton of questions at linebacker. These guys should be able to work, man. This defensive line, I'm thinking, is going to be able to keep that offensive line's those big linemen's bear paws off of them, man, and they ought to be able to be free to play some football and make some tackles. So I think this was a good move for these guys. They're going to get a lot of playing time, and I think that, again, not the best linebacker core in the world, right? Not the best linebacker core in the nation, but serviceable. What do you think?
Yeah. And they weren't bad last year. I think that the defensive line was terrible, and it wore on the inside linebackers a lot. So to me, I think Levante Bentley comes back and he'll be a starter in the middle. Trevor Woods was a starter last year. I think that he'll kind of rotate in, but to me, on your screen there, Nikhil Hill Green, I think he's going to end up being the starter based on kind of, the way that spring practice unfolded there. So I think you've got Hill Green there as one of your starters, Bentley, and then as your kind of third rotating inside linebacker. And that's all you need really at linebackers 3 to play. I think it's going to end up being Trevor Woods. But ultimately, yeah, I'm excited to see what this group can do with decent line play in front of them. I think that's the biggest thing. If your line's playing well, I believe we're gonna. I mean, I know we're gonna get into the secondary here, but I believe the secondary is going to be pretty dang good. So if you're sandwiched between two decent units, it leaves some room for you to go out and just play football. And I think that's ultimately what the two linebacker positions are going to be asked to do. Considering that the other two groups should be better. I don't know if it'll be good. I don't know if it'll be great, but it should be better than it was last season.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's get into that secondary. Big pickup from Liberty, Preston Hodge. I think that's a nice piece to add to that safety room. Savion Riley. Those are a couple of safeties that you can add in behind the Sanders boy, and I think you've got a good group there. Cornerback, DJ McKinney coming over from Oklahoma State, RJ Johnson coming over from Arkansas, and you know who else you have playing cornerback as well. The only Travis Hunter. So I'm with you. I think this is a pretty solid secondary. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so surprisingly, they're talking about moving Travis Hunter from the cornerback position to nickelback, move him a little bit closer to the football, and allow him to come off the edge more. Is kind of my thought. Usually, you would see a bigger defensive back playing that position at nickel,
Yeah.
but they want him playing closer to the football. I'm sure it'll be kind of a trade off there, where him and it seems like Preston Hodge, the transfer, will be the other one playing either cornerback or nickel. So interesting that he played safety when he came over from Liberty, but they're going to move him over to cornerback. DJ McKinney is going to be your other cornerback. He was excellent at Oklahoma State. I think he's kind of your lockdown cornerback over there, along with, of course, Travis Hunter. And then you mentioned it earlier, but Silman Craig, having him at safety is a huge help, along with Shiloh Sanders. And then behind them, the true sophomore but playmaker in Carter Stoutmeyer. He's going to be that utility position really all over. I mean, he can play cornerback, he can play safety, he can play nickel, anywhere you need him. If one of those players goes down, I think Stoutmeyer's going to be able to provide some depth and some experience and some real talent. I think he could be, I don't want to say the most talented, of course, but outside of probably Travis Hunter, I think that Stoutmeyer could be the most talented DB that they have, which I don't know. DJ McKinney's pretty dang good in my opinion. But anyways, you're not going to have much drop off with that sixth DB that's back there. I think that really goes a long way in a DB room.
2024 Colorado schedule. Going to start off with North Dakota State. And look, North Dakota State wasn't a great team last year, Mason, but this is a program. They have a new coach and everything, and I know all that, but North Dakota State has a program going on. They develop talent, and they have, over the last decade or so, won some championships. So if Colorado's not ready week one, it's going to be tough. They're not ready week two, they're going to get beat. Okay? Got Nebraska. We're going to do our Nebraska breakdown, and I think they're next up on the list. So we're going to have Colorado and Nebraska back to back here. Nebraska's gotten a lot better this season. Nebraska is going to, I think, be a little bit better at maybe not turning the ball over so much. We'll see. Then you got Colorado State, Baylor, UCF, Kansas State, very tough game. Arizona, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Utah, extremely tough game. Kansas, Oklahoma State. Pretty tough schedule, Mason. Honestly, whoever scheduled North Dakota State 10 years ago or whatever, they should be fired. You have no business scheduling a North Dakota State if you're a Colorado. That's a bad idea. Okay, that you need an easy game to start off. Okay, or if it's going to be a hard game, you need to play. This is a no-win situation from Colorado. If they beat the crap out of North Dakota State, everybody will say, well, they should beat the crap out of them. It's the North Dakota State Jackrabbits. But if they lose to them, it's going to be like, ha, you lost to North Dakota State. This is just a horrible situation for Colorado, in my opinion. What do you think about the schedule, man? What games stick out to you?
Well, to me, like you mentioned, they get Kansas State and Utah. That is not favorable. Those are the two toughest teams
Mhm.
to face in the Big 12. I think that those are two losses right there. The only other two that I'm really looking at as definite losses, in my opinion, would be Oklahoma State and Nebraska. I do think Nebraska is going to be really good this year. And I think Oklahoma State's going to be really good. So those are the only other two. Kansas is going to be a really tough game. I would favor Kansas for sure in that one. The other ones are winnable. You know, when I look at this schedule, I think that the ceiling is 8-4, but the floor is probably 6 wins. And maybe I'm being too optimistic here, but I do think that this Colorado football team is getting better. I do like the transfer portal additions that they made, and I think that this Colorado team has potential to go bowling this year. And I don't see them not making it to a bowl game when it's all said and done, especially if that offensive line comes through. Like we mentioned earlier, this is a tough situation for that O line, but ultimately, I think that the weapons on the outside and in the running back room will overcompensate for maybe a lack of a offensive line play to a degree. You can only cover it up so much, but to me, I'm looking at this. I'm saying this is more than likely going to be a 7-5 season for the Buffs. What do you think?
You are much more optimistic than I. I do not think this team can win 6 games.
Mhm.
I just don't see it. This offensive line doesn't have near enough experience. This is the problem with the transfer portal right here. You're picking up everybody else's scraps. You haven't developed any players, and he's only 2 years in. Deion is only 2 years in, so I'm not saying that you would have a whole class of guys that have been developed already at this point. I think that would be unfair to say, but I don't see any progress being made in that. You do bring in one really highly touted freshman through traditional recruiting and Jordan Seaton there on that offensive line, but it's not going to be enough. I've seen enough film on Jordan Seaton to understand that, this isn't a finished product.
Right.
This is not a polished product. Very few freshmen come into Division I FBS college football and dominate. I'm not saying he should be dominating, or he would be if he was at Alabama or Georgia or anything like that, but you got to have time to throw the ball. You've got to clear lanes to run the ball. I feel like Colorado is better this year than they were last year on that first group, right? That first string. Some of the second string is like, okay, there's a step down. There's nothing behind those guys. There's nothing behind those guys, and it's a long season. So I could see Colorado doing something similar to what they did last year. Maybe they start off, 3-1 or 4-2, kind of like they did last year. But I feel like that backstretch is going to be hell, and I don't feel like this team is prepared. And I love Deion, indifferent. It doesn't matter really at the end of the day. This team is what they are at this point. There's no more transfer portals to hit in between now and fall. And I don't think this team is prepared to go out and have a winning season. But hey, I'm wrong every year on something, and maybe I'm wrong on this one. If you think I'm wrong, I'd like to hear from you in the comment section. If I'm just a hater, you can let me know there too. But I promise you that's not the case. I love Deion Sanders. Okay, I'm an Atlanta guy. Okay, I like Deion. I want to root for Deion. I'd like things to go well. But there's a reason things are done a certain way in college football, Mason, and there's a reason that people don't come in and tell everybody to get the hell off the team. And I think now this year, I think you're going to see Colorado pay for that. Again, and
Yeah.
I don't think Deion will be the coach next year. Let's just say that I don't think he'll be there next year. But hey, I'm. This is a great story, and for people like us, we love talking about it. We love hearing from you guys, Colorado fans. Let us know what you think. I think 5-7 is what's going to happen this year. I think, and if you really want to be technical, that's a little bit better than last year.
That's
So,
true.
and it's a whole lot better than the year before. So, are they getting better? Yes. Have they arrived? I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
Mason, anything else before we close on Colorado?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. For us, the big question mark is going to be on the offensive line. I think we both agree that the defense should be pretty good
Yeah.
overall. I mean, they've got the pieces there at least, if nothing else. Um, I, I just I hold my hat on that defense and say that that's the reason why they can get to at least 6 wins.
Yeah.
I think 6 or 7 wins is realistic. I think 5 wins is realistic too, though. If they have another 4 win season in the Big 12, which is I think easier than what the Pac 12 was last year, then yeah, we're seeing some regression at
You've
that
got a
point.
point there. This conference is easier than the Pac-12 last year, don't you think?
Yeah,
Yeah. Now that you say that, I mean that makes sense. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. I think it is. I think the schedule is easier than what they had last year. So but Nebraska I think is going to be really tough. If they play them tough, we'll know. We'll know in that Nebraska game if Colorado is has arrived, and that's that. It You got to take that with a grain of salt. Colorado fans, this is not a national championship program.
No.
They're not going to be. I don't know who's telling you that it is, but that's not what they're going to be. They could have a Heisman Trophy quarterback, or a cornerback. That could be very fun, actually. But if that's the case, then this team's winning 8 games.
Yeah.
That's kind of we saw last year. That's kind of the floor there. If you're going to have a Heisman winning player on your team, you got to win at least 8 games. So, yeah, I think Colorado could do it if everything goes well. If they hit on every position and every transfer that they brought in, hey, 8 wins would be great. Eight wins, honestly, would shake the college football earth in a sense because
Oh, sure.
um,
Yeah.
it's what Deion did is such a paradigm shift from what we've ever seen from college football coaches, and he did it 2 years in a row. That's the other thing. He didn't just do it once and say, "All right, now I got my team. Let's build on this." He pretty much said, "All right, now I have 30% of my roster. I'm going to get rid of another 70% of my roster and start all over again." That
Yeah.
you can't sustain that, but I do think overall, like we mentioned, the roster did get better as a whole. Can they completely reset once again and be effective? That's the question. It's such an experiment. I don't know where to go with this, and it's really tough to gauge and to judge. But ultimately, I do think that the pieces that they brought in have potential if everything collides in the right way. And I don't know that it will either. So I don't know. I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but
Yeah.
it's tough not to because it is so new and such an experiment, like I said.
Absolutely. And all you Buffs fans, if you're still watching this, thank you so much for tuning in to the First and Long College Football Show. Look, I might think that Colorado sucks, but it doesn't mean I don't want you around the channel hanging out and talking some football with us, okay?
Yeah.
And you're more than welcome to try to change my mind in the comment section because I read every single one of them. So,
Look, I know y'all. Mark is going to be telling me every week Colorado's going to lose this week. Colorado State is an in-state rival, and Colorado's going to lose this week. He's going to say it on the channel, and y'all can just follow along and be here to tell him that he's wrong when they win.
yeah. Yeah. North Dakota State's going to win week 1. So,
Yeah.
no, I'm just kidding.
See, we're already starting. Catch me in the comments, Mark.
No hate. Okay. Go Buffs. I'll give you a go Buffs. Everybody have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. We've got our countdown going all the way to number 1. Can't wait to see you there at number 1. Everybody have a great night.
Hey, and Mark promised me that if Colorado goes bowling this year, he will buy a Shedeur Sanders jersey and he'll wear it on the show for bowl week.
All right, bet. You got it, man.